Hi, and welcome back. Looking at my worksheets about core values, I see that honesty and integrity are really important to me. But if I'm being honest, I'm not actually living those values. And the way I know that is having friends tell me that they're learning things about me in these videos that they never knew. Friends I've had for more than a decade. Pretty telling. I've talked about compartmentalization to some extent in all of the videos so far, but for that concept to make any sense in my life, there needs to be some context. Otherwise, it's just a meaningless word, possibly bordering on an excuse with no intention for change. Intentionality matters. It's another core value of mine. For me, compartmentalization is about more than just neatly boxing up thoughts and feelings. The actual psychological definition is that compartmentalization is a defense mechanism where thoughts and feelings that seem to be in conflict are kept separated and isolated from each other in the mind. An example from my work life, if a client reveals something that I personally find appalling, but professionally see as a source of pain that needs to be addressed, those conflicting values and feelings will be separated in my mind into neat little compartments where I may never have to really resolve the conflict. Keeping those feelings separate, boxing them up, requires a fair amount of withholding. Withholding from others, to be sure, but also withholding from myself. This really matters beyond just how I'm thinking about things for my own development. It affects all of my relationships. This very morning, a friend texted me her reaction about these videos. Because until she saw the videos and saw me opening up about what's really going on with me, and to some extent, what's really going on with him, she entered protective friend mode. I compartmentalized, I withheld, and she didn't really know about me. I learned to withhold very early in life. My family has a lot of secrets. I think most families do. I won't get into these secrets for my family. That's for my own therapy. And those stories aren't entirely mine to share so freely, so I won't. What I will say is that I learned to withhold information within my family by example and by teaching. Added to that is the fact that I was bullied in school and I never told anybody about it. To me, there was no point talking about it because my parents couldn't change the root cause of why I was being bullied. That was too far outside their power at that time. And despite what educational professionals might tell us about dealing with bullies, you are not going to get them to a point of empathy by telling them how you feel. That actually only feeds the beast. So from elementary school onward, I kept things from my family. I compartmentalized before I even knew what that actually was. When we moved to a small town in a more rural part of Arkansas, that only magnified. Small town where my graduating class was 123 people. And almost all of them knew each other from birth. So the bullying continued, even in the small town Church of Christ that, as I said yesterday, should have been one of the safest places for me, but was actually one of the most dangerous places for my mental health. I went to college, and by then I was really good at hiding myself. I finally felt emboldened to come out, not really on my terms. I was living with my dear sweet aunt, and she came home one day to a message on the answering machine. Yeah, back when people still had answering machines. A message with a guy asking me out on a date. And that was how I came out to her, and to my family not too long after. Dating was hard. I didn't share much about myself because I didn't think there was much of interest to share. And honestly, when you're 18, just out of high school, pretty close to your physical prime, and nobody wants the sharing, they want the sex. So that made it easier to compartmentalize the conflict between my desire to date and experience emotional connection versus my value to those guys. In my first real relationship, I tried really, really hard to be what he needed at that point in his life. And I gotta tell you, that did not go well. I didn't know how to really connect with anybody, and neither did he. He was depressed most of the time. I was depressed off and on. The final ending really was what it was supposed to be. Another lesson I learned in withholding was part of that relationship. At one point, we went to the same therapist, but individually, not as a couple. Normally that doesn't happen, but in a small town of less than 50,000 people at that time, there weren't a lot of options. And that therapist revealed something pretty significant about my ex. He broke professional confidence. I didn't understand that fully at the time, not in the ways that I understand it now, the legal and ethical ramifications of what he revealed to me. Instead, at that time, it just reinforced to me the value of secrecy. If your therapist is going to gossip about you, is there any safe space? When I moved to Texas in 2000, I planned on finally finishing college. I'd already switched majors a few times and failed out because I was having way too much fun outside of class. Here, I took a forensic psychology class and I was completely hooked. Even before I graduated, I was already working in a high-profile forensic psychology practice, learning all I could possibly learn about human behavior, the darker side of human behavior. I spent the next 13 years surrounded by rapists, arsonists, sex offenders, drug dealers, murderers, and serial killers. Spoiler alert, serial killing is more common than it looks in the movies. I promise it's not all that unique. All of that work was pretty dark and pretty heavy. And I was never allowed to talk about it, which was good because I had no idea what to think or what to say, much less how to feel about the things I was seeing day in and day out. Compartmentalization. Fast forward to finishing graduate school, getting through my supervised time, getting licensed, and opening my own practice where I supervise others. The clinical aspects of my work require a high degree of confidentiality. I simply do not get to talk about what happens in the safe space within my office. I know Hollywood representations show therapists consulting with each other in the break room between sessions or over drinks at happy hour, but that's really not how it's supposed to be. So withholding became habitual out of professional necessity. But even socially, it was reinforced over and over that I needed to protect myself. Friends gossip, churches gossip, people share information. Usually it's not in some nefarious way, but just because communicating about shared interests is part of how humans connect with each other. But I don't always want those things shared. So I never shared much beyond the superficial. And I got really good at making the superficial seem important so people thought they were in the know, but they weren't. Most of my friends don't know my birthday. They don't know my favorite color. They don't know my favorite food. They don't know the places I love to vacation. They don't even know how many siblings I have. And those are such basic things to share. Imagine what they don't know about my deepest values and beliefs and hopes and dreams and fears and my goals for life. And that's before I even start thinking about including my own traumas into that mix. Things I didn't always recognize or conceptualize as trauma, despite being considered somewhat of an expert on trauma and having published on trauma. I separated those events from my own feelings about those events so I would never have to admit what happened to me. Fairly typical trauma response. But when your job is to deal with heavy shit, you can't avoid your own heavy shit. Not permanently. So, my compartmentalization started out of resignation in childhood about things I couldn't change, having no power. Then it became about self-protection. Then it became habit, and now it's just a way of life. And that's not just about factual information. It's also about my emotional self. Those gossipy friends of mine, they have no idea how much I hate gossip or how little respect I have for people who do that. I have a visceral reaction to that. But I don't share how it impacts me emotionally. When my feelings are hurt, I put it in a neat little box, pack it away, and move on. And when I have good emotional reactions, fuck, I'm at a loss for what to do with that. One of my best friends, who's been very encouraging of this process and tells me every day she's proud of what I'm doing, is a very loving human being. Every time we part company, Kimberly hugs me and tells me that she loves me. At first, that was so uncomfortable for me to hear that. And I think she figured that out pretty quickly because she asked about it. Even now, 5 years into our relationship, it's still a hard thing for me to hear. But I know she genuinely loves me, and I genuinely love her. But saying those words, well, that's not so easy for me. See, when I can't accept gifts of love for whatever reason, and I have feelings that I struggle to express, it's just easier for me to fall back on what I know. Compartmentalization and withholding. And that has been a huge problem in my relationship. He's a very private person, and he understands that I'm a very private person, at least about the real things. But he has been very clear all along that he wants all of me. He wants to know all of me. He wants to experience all of me. And he wants me to experience all of him. In his mind, a good relationship with a true partner or spouse, you give each other everything, the things you don't share with the world, the things you hold deepest within yourself. And I love that. I want that. But I haven't known how to do that. So for the past 20 months, I've vacillated between sharing things and withholding things. And I've done it in ways that are so unfair to him and so unfair to me. Of course it made him question everything. If the person you love, the person who loves you, is keeping things from you, that's going to be painful. And I'm not talking about keeping small things like being upset over a shitty remark or not expressing joy over a love note. I'm talking about the big things, the genuine expressions of love and gratitude. The late night talks about where we want to live in a few years and why I want to be there with him. Letting him know why I choose to come home every night so that he knows it's rooted in love and not just where my toothbrush is. Reminding him every day of why he is loved and wanted and respected and admired and desired and appreciated. Why he matters in my life, how he makes every day better for me. I withheld those things. Yes, sometimes it was rooted in the conflict between what he was giving me and what I felt I deserved. That's insecurity, and that's a great cause of compartmentalization. But so often it was just about habitually going through my day, talking about the things I was able to talk about, and shutting off the strongest reactions because it was going to be like a floodgate, and once it opened, I didn't know if I would have the ability to contain it. In my real desire to protect him from the darker parts of my life, the things I deal with day in and day out in my professional realm, I kept too many things to myself, even the good things. I was scared to share the amazing feelings I was having, the reactionary feelings of his generous love and my inward feelings about him that I didn't project outward. So I didn't do any real work about learning how to balance what I really must compartmentalize in my professional life and with the things I really must share in my personal life with the person I still want to spend the rest of my life with. And that was so unfair to us both. And it does not align with my professed values of honesty and integrity and intentionality. I wasn't living the things I said were important to me, the things I expect of others. And that was hurtful. He gave me this amazing book called All That You Deserve by Jacqueline Whitney. The book is a reminder that we deserve the best of everything simply because we exist. There's an entry that I've read so many times it's almost etched into my brain. It resonates with my journey, where I'm at right now, and what I'm trying to do right now. And I'd like to share it. This won't be a dramatic reading. I'm not a voice actor, but here goes. Once your soul has held unexplainable darkness, the world makes it difficult to believe you belong in it. There's nothing more lonely than being around everybody, but feeling like nobody can relate to what you experience internally. So you hold it all in until your soul can't hold it any longer. Maybe feelings you don't want to feel surround you, and being awake is exhausting. Maybe no one knows what you are feeling because you don't have the energy to explain yourself. Maybe you don't even know how to put words to what you're going through, and that is so frustrating. Maybe you tell yourself you're overreacting. You're not overreacting. You're going through something difficult. If you feel like you can't hold it any longer, be gentle with the way you speak to yourself and reach out to someone. Those thoughts you feel are controlling you. Tell them to someone. Someone wants to listen to you. You deserve to be heard. You are not any less than someone you think has it more together than you. You belong here. You deserve to live with a peaceful mind. Be gentle with the way you speak to yourself. You belong here. Pain always fades. Please don't be embarrassed about what you've been through. It's difficult to feel like no one truly understands you. It's difficult to feel alone in what you've been through. I promise you, someone in the universe has been through something very similar to you. You are never out of your mind for feeling what you feel. You are never too far gone to be saved. And that's where I'm at today. Trying to be gentle with myself as I face the reality of my learned behaviors, a true defense mechanism, and the ways I've chosen to embrace them over time without considering how I was hurting others and how I was hurting myself. I do deserve to be heard. I do deserve to be loved, genuinely loved for who I am. Because if I strip away the compartmentalization, if I lean into this thing of more openly sharing, I have to be honest that I'm having a sometimes confusing mix of thoughts and emotions. I understand there's a Disney movie about that, and maybe I'll add that to my homework list. But where I'm at today, there's a lot. I have feelings of hurt, anger, betrayal, rejection, loss, and lots of fear. But more than those things, I still feel love. I feel gratitude for what he brings to my life, how every day is just better with him in it. Joy about the experiences we've shared. Hope for a future where we're both healthier and happier. I have pride in his own journey to recovery. At the end of the day, fuck it, I still love him. I'm still in love with him. Right now, I can't imagine not loving him or not being in love with him. So it's a swirling mess of stuff. God knows it would be a lot easier if I could hate him or even dislike him. But I don't. He's an amazing human being, and I still want to spend my life with him. So that's where I'm at today. I'll be back tomorrow.